In this equation, we have three fractions, and we have two different ways to solve this type of equation. So the first solution, which is the old way, and we try to get x by itself. So first, we have to get rid of -1, 6. And after we get rid of -1, 6, and then we can get rid of 2/3. So the first step, in order to get rid of -1, 6, we're going to do the opposite operation to cancel it out. So we're going to add 1, 6. And because -1, 6 plus +1, 6, they cancel each other, we just need to figure out what the right-hand side is. So to add fractions, we need to have a common denominator. So first of all, by looking at 9 and 6, and we try to find a common number, and which is the common multiple. So we can take 9 and multiply by 2, and take 6 multiply by 3. So that way we can reach a common number, and this number is called the common multiple. And also 18 is the smallest common multiple, so we call it the least common multiple. And so this is what we did here. For the first fraction, we multiply both the numerator and denominator by 2. And for the second one, we multiply both the numerator and denominator by 3. So that way, we can turn the denominators, 9 and 6, to 18 and 18. Now, after we have the common denominator, all we have to do is to add the numerators. So notice the numerators, we have our -8 plus +3. And so we're going to add them, and because we have more debt than credit, so $8 debt plus $3 credit, that leaves us $5 debt. And a negative number divided by a positive number is negative. So the right hand side, after we add them, we end up with a -5/18. And notice this is the place that takes a lot of time by adding these two fractions. So we are going to do a new way, which will save us a lot of time of adding fractions. Now, to finish the old way, we also have to get rid of this fraction 2/3. In the previous video, we talked about how to get rid of fraction, and we can multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So what are we going to do is we take 2/3 and flip it at the top to the bottom to the top, and we get 3/2. And we're going to take this number, which is called the reciprocal, and multiply both sides by this number. And the reason we do that is because this can cancel out the 3 and a 3 and the 2 and 2. And on the right hand side, all we have to do is to reduce the numbers first. For example, top 3 and the bottom 18, they both have 3 in common, so we're going to divide both numbers by 3, and that's going to reduce 3 down to 1 and 18 down to 6. And now we can multiply straight across. So we have 1 times 5, which is 5, and 2 times 6, that gives us 12. And notice 3/2 is positive, but 5/18, there's minus sign in front of it, and we know positive times negative number gives us negative. So that's why we have a minus here. And on the left hand side, because all the numbers are canceled out, or technically we end up with a bunch of 1s, but 1 times 1 and divide by 1 times 1 will still give us 1/1, and that is also 1. And if we have a 1 in front of variable, and that can be omitted because anything times 1 will be itself. So x times 1 will still be x. So this is how we solve for x when we have a lot of fractions. We still did it the same way as we did it before, try to do the opposite operations. Minus we do plus, and multiplication we were supposed to do division, but we took the shortcut, and because we know divide by 2/3 is equivalent to multiply 3/2. So we took this shortcut here. But notice this method, it we have to spend a lot of time figure out the answer for this part right here, adding the fractions. And so we're going to introduce a new way here. The new way is, because this is an equation, the left-hand side and right-hand side, so we can go ahead and multiply a number to increase all the fractions until they become whole numbers. So this is what we're going to do. First, we're going to look at all the denominators, 3, 6, and 9. And we're going to find a common denominator. So it's 3, 6, and 9. And we can see that if we multiply 3 by 6 and 6 by 3 and 9 by 2, they can reach a common number, which is the least common multiple. And we also call the least common denominator here because 3, 6, and 9, they are denominators. So instead of calling them least common multiple, we can also call them least common denominator. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this number and multiply every term by 18. So as you can see in red here, we multiply the first term by 18 and the second term by 18 and the third term by 18. And this is legitimate because when we have an equation, one of the 4 operations we are allowed to do is to multiply both sides by the same number, which is what we did here. So now we're going to multiply the fractions, and notice that 18, we can turn 18 into a fraction by putting 1 underneath. So now we can reduce the fractions. For example, the top 18 and the bottom 3, they both have 3 in common. We can divide both of them by 3. That gives us 6 here and 1 here. And now we're going to multiply straight across. 6 times 2 is 12, and there's an x we bring down. And the bottom, because 3 is reduced to 1, so we have 1 times 1, which is 1. And anything divided by 1 itself is itself. So 12x divided by 1 is going to be 12x. So that bottom one, we can just omit it. Same thing here. We can divide both 18 and the 6 by 6. So that's going to reduce the 6 down to 1. And then we have minus 3 times 1, which is 3. Again, the bottom ones can be omitted. On the right-hand side, since 9 and 18 both have 9 in common, we can divide both of them by 9. And 18 is reduced down to 2, and 9 is reduced down to 1. So again, the minus sign we bring down, and 2 times 4 gives us 8. Same thing, the denominator, since the denominator is 1, we can just omit it. So now we notice after we multiplying both sides by 18, we successfully got rid of all the fractions and turned them into integers or whole numbers if we don't look at the sign here. And this is much easier to solve than the original problem. So instead of getting rid of negative 1/6 by adding 1/6, we could just add 3 to both sides. And after we cancel them, we have negative 8 plus 3, which is negative 5. And now we just need to get rid of 12 instead of getting rid of a fraction, 2/3 here. So we can divide both sides by 12. And on the right-hand side, since this fraction is already reduced, we could just leave it as negative 5/12. And the minus sign, because negative divided by positive is negative. All right, so this second method is highly recommended when we have a bunch of fractions in the equation. So the idea here is to find a common number such that all the denominators can go into. And after we multiply every term by this number, it's going to successfully get rid of all the fractions, turn all of these fractions into whole numbers. And this will save us a lot of time of adding fractions or dividing fractions. Now let's look at another example. So in this example, we also have a lot of fractions. So we're going to solve this by the new way. And remember that in the new way, we first focus on the denominators because we want to get rid of them. And 8, 4, and 10, we want to multiply some numbers. So we take multiples of 8, 4, and 10. So we can reach a common multiple. In this case, notice that 40 will work because we can multiply 8 by 5 and 4 by 10 and 10 by 4 to get the common multiple. If you cannot see this, and you can use what the methods one of the methods we learned is by doing factoring. So let's quickly go over that. So you can break down 8 and break down 2, line up the same numbers, and break down 10, line up the same number, create a new column for 5, and then we just need to bring down one number from each column. That's gonna give us 2 times 2 times 2 times 5, and that is exactly 40. So if you cannot see that the least common multiple is 40, you can always use this method. So now once we get 40, and this is a very important step here, and we will use one of the operations we're allowed to do, two equations, multiply both sides by the same number. So we're going to multiply both, because the left hand side has both of these two terms, so we have to multiply both of them by 40. The right hand side is only one term, so we only need to multiply 140. All right, so after we multiply both sides by 40, the least common denominator, we're going to, first of all, we can put a 1 underneath to turn 40 into a fraction. Now we're going to go ahead and reduce 8, because 40 and 8 both contain 8, so we're going to reduce 8 goes into 40 5 times, 8 goes into 8 one time. And we're going to go ahead and reduce all the others. Divide by 4. So 10 divided by 4, 40 divided by 4 is 10, 40 divided by 4 is 1. And since 10 and 40 both contain 4 as a factor, so we're going to divide both numbers by 10. So now after we reduce all the numbers, as you can see, 8 is reduced to 1, 4 is reduced to 1, 10 is reduced to 1. So all the denominators will be gone because we're going to have something, whatever is in the numerator, the denominator will be 1 times 1, and that is going to be something over 1, and anything over 1 will be itself. So that's why all the bottom numbers will be gone. So all we have to do is to focus on the numerators. So 40 is reduced down to 5, and there's another 5 here. We didn't reduce that, so we're going to have to multiply straight across. So 5 times 5, and also x, we didn't reduce that, so we have to do 5 times 5 times x, which gives us 25x. So similarly, we got to multiply 10 and a 3, that's a 30, and negative 4 times 7, that's negative 28. Now, after we get rid of all the fractions, now we just need to get rid of this positive 30. We can do the opposite of positive 30, that's a minus 30. And also negative 28 minus 30, and we can put a plus sign between them. Adding two debts, we get a larger debt. So the debt means it's negative. Larger debt means we add 28 and 30 to get 58. Now we get rid of, in order to get rid of 25, because the operation between 25 and x is multiplication. So we're going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. And take a quick second. 25 divided by 25, they're canceled. So we're just going to get an x. On the right hand side, negative divided by positive, that's negative. But 58 and 25, they don't have anything in common, because the only number that can go into 25 is 5, but 5 doesn't go into 58 because it doesn't end in 0 or 5. So that's why we can stop. And this is already the final answer.